Alrighty. Due to how bloody delayed Canto X is, I figure we need another one of those Games for Dead Weeks videos. Only since I was already doing a donathon anyway, figured, why not just throw a bunch of roguelike games from my library onto a wheel and do one run of each of these to see if I can still clear them. Of course, some of these I just haven't been able to clear at all, or just plain suck at, but I'll give a brief overview of each game, their relative difficulty types, and whether or not they have an overarching narrative. Without further ado, what the bloody hell did we spin up first? Chrono Ark. This is a party-based deck builder in an anime aesthetic with some music by Studio IEM, the fellows behind a good chunk of Project Moon's OSTs. It is a rather deep and customizable affair, with many synergies and builds as you traverse the ruins to gather time shards and activate the clock tower. There's a large spanning meta-narrative that progresses when you hit certain points, and unlockables as well as a whole host of characters to pick up alongside meta progression to improve your runs. Most of the difficulty in this game is in knowledge and sequencing. The more you know about the game, the far easier it becomes as you lever your potential options and weigh up synergies. There's no hard action execution requirements. In the words of Fox's Hollow, this is what Limbus Company should have been, but I reckon the fella's more bitter about the streamlining of Limbus compared to the depth of Ruiner. Regardless, you want a game that rewards good on-the-fly deck building? Chrono Ark has you covered. In my one run, I actually cleared, though to be fair, I chose some of the safer to clear characters, and it took up 3 whole hours of the stream to wrap up. That, and I've pretty extensively played this one. Yeah, there's a sword on the ground. Let me just execute the cunt. Wizard of Legend. This one is a very fast-paced combo and execution-heavy twin-stick spell slinger. Magico on crack. Well, not exactly, but it's comboing wizards. I was pretty good at this game 5 years ago, but well, having not touched it for a long time means being exceedingly rusty at it. We failed the run rather fast, having been element screwed in the first set of levels. The game is a tad narrative light, you are essentially reliving the past glory of wizards. Most of the difficulty here isn't so much in the knowledge check, more so execution. You need damn fast reaction time for some of those attacks, and well, I don't really have those anymore, so the run of course got cut exceedingly short the moment I took a glass cannon style upgrade. Progression is mostly building up your spell and outfit base. The game doesn't necessarily get too much easier through meta progression far as I've played. On a special note with this game though, if you're interested, play this one. Pretend the sequel doesn't exist. Well, that didn't take long. Death Road to Canada. So, during stream, I needed a bit of a break, so I shoved the Canadian-American Hong Konger next to me on instead. Welcome to the screen, my rigger, roommate, and girlfriend, Rhino Lune, escaping America and braving the death road to Canada. Think of this game essentially as the Oregon Trail, but with zombies instead of dysentery. Regardless, this game is a celebration of all kinds of zombie media, and is essentially a survival run from the States to Canada. You stock up on food, weapons, cars, whatever it may be. Hold out from zombie sieges, dissolve jank situations with other survivors, the works. Heck, you can even make your own custom characters to meet along the death road if you so wished. Honestly, most of this game's difficulty is more in execution than knowledge. Many on-the-fly choices to make rather than things you can directly plan against. Especially with how ridiculously random matters are here instead, compared to the more structured floor or level-like nature of others on this list.
Oh, there's no way I'm handling this one. Well,
Domekeeper. You ever watch that Simpsons movie with the dome? Well, this isn't that. Instead, you're a fella mining for relics or prestige on an alien planet. You must, however, protect your base of operations from increasingly aggressive and full attack waves. If you've ever played an old Flash game called Motherlode, you'll like this one, though the mining part in comparison is rather dry, rather than as dangerous as that game. Follows roughly the same principles though. Get minerals, upgrade your stuff, go back to mine more minerals, etc. My own run went with almost the base settings and was a relatively pain-free clear. Just kinda slow, all things considered. The game does feature co-op these days if you wanted to mine and protect a dome together, that's an option. Apparently there's PvP too. Didn't try that this time round though. Thank you, Relic. And so, our run with Domekeeper comes to an end. Risk of Rain returns. This one is a classic. I 100% cleared the original back in high school and kept returning every now and then to get through it. Also, Chris, there's someone stealing your music rights on the final level song again. Please fix so I can actually stream this game without getting copyright claimed. Risk of Rain is a 2D action platformer that gets increasingly more difficult as time goes on. To counteract this, you find items to boost your capabilities while searching for teleporters to new levels and eventually the ship. Once there, you go for a series of tribulations to eventually fight the final boss and get off world. The remake introduces plenty of upgraded visuals, a redone soundtrack, and more from the second game, alongside a heck of a lot of twists. Love this thing to death. Can't quite say the same for the second game, but regardless, comes with a wholehearted recommendation. My own run this time was a success. Beating the finale on Rainstorm with Command using the bandits, not a very hard run by any stretch of the imagination, but just one for old time's sake. I had to place this game as half and half on execution and knowledge requirements. And so he left with his Pyrrhic plunder. Bleh. NecroDancer. I'm a man with no rhythm, and this hurts to play at times. The concept of Crypt of the NecroDancer is very simple. It's rogue, but if you had to play to the rhythm instead. Quite a lot closer to the original inspiration than a lot of others on this list anyhow. Essentially, though, you move, attack, and use abilities all to the rhythm as you fight down increasingly painful floors of this dungeon. There's some light plot and theming, but it's been far too long for me to go and recap it in any meaningful way these days. All that to say, I failed my run terribly this time due to my shockingly bad rhythm. This game is closer to 95% execution compared to knowledge, so if for some reason you're itching for a rhythm-based combat dungeon crawler, this is your best bet. Alternatively, there's a Legend of Zelda version of this out there now. Rip. It's over. NecroDancer's a failure. Instant failure almost. Holy shit. Noita. I haven't reached the bottom of the mountain, let alone scratched the surface of the sun. This game goes far too deep, and if you wanted something that doesn't stop to ask you why, this is the game for you. It's a 2D platformer where you merge spell components, wands, and perks to go deeper into a sacred mountain. Only things can severely unravel and break apart, while somehow retaining an odd amount of internal logic. You see, if you ever played one of those old powder toy games, everything here acts as if it were part of one of those, simulating some mad reactions and possibilities. This game, I'd recommend going in blind at first, and once you hit the bottom of the mountain, that's when I'd say look into the sheer bullshit on hand. This game is far more knowledge-based than execution, though it doesn't hurt to be good at action platformers for some later bosses. My own run unfortunately got cut short by some bullets, just as we were starting to get a half-decent wand. Well, that's not fantastic. Ah, fuck, we're dead. We have 20 HP. We have 2 HP. Blah, 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 blah. One step from Eden. Mega Man Battle Network, essentially an action deck builder wherein execution and exceedingly fast reaction time are rewarded. There's little in the way of meta progression after you've gotten all the extra random stuff, meaning at a baseline the game remains quite difficult. Due to its deck building nature though, knowledge is about as important as your execution, both going quite extreme ends as the difficulty ramps up. My own run ended pretty much exactly as the title said, one step from Eden, essentially at the final boss. There's some additional jank and routing and secrets, but most runs boil down to roughly the same thing. Bash your way through to Eden. Face a different boss based on whether or not you killed or spared bosses throughout the run. Would recommend if only for the music and visuals alone while you bash your head against it. Literally got one step from Eden. Slay the Spire 2. Far harder than its predecessor, at least to break wide open. There used to be infinites and far more broken combos, but those have since been neutered. This thing is deck-building roguelike final boss. The original spawned far too many clones and prospective indie games and did it on MS Paint art at times. A good chunk of the charm from said original also bleeds over to here with some new classes and cool new builds and synergies. The biggest appeal to me though, aside from the addictive nature of rapid deck building, is being able to do it with your friends. Compared to other co-op deck builders, there's more to be desired since most kits only synergize with themselves, but nonetheless, if you aren't already on this game, you probably probably should be. Most of the difficulty is in knowledge rather than execution. Sequencing perhaps, but mostly just knowledge will get you over the line. My own run died at the knowledge demon with a bunch of mates. That thing still remains one of the main run enders rather than the crab or worm, I swear.
And I died this time.
It's been healing so much. Wow. Bleh. Downwell. Execution final boss. Rather, I think this is one of the games with the highest level of execution requirements to clear, because damn, you can die stupid fast here, and due to pretty much always falling downwards, there's zero downtime period. You don't really get time to breathe playing Downwell. It's one of those classic ride and die fast sort of games. There isn't really meta progression. Most of the roguelike elements are in its random generation rather than anything else. Pretty much any device made after the 2010s can run this thing. Heck, I used to play this thing on a PS Vita. Anyhow, I suck at this game. Give it a shot if you need a distraction for a bit and want just enough stress to pull out your hair over a stickman falling down a well. Did say it'd be over quite fast. One-way heroics. This is Rogue. Rather, this is the single game on the list that plays closest to the original Rogue. You are running away from a continuously spreading darkness in an attempt to kill the Demon Lord and purge away the calamity following you. It's a very charming affair and used to be only 87 cents Aussie at a certain point when on discount. Considering I've gotten closer to 80 hours out of this thing, you can bet that this game was far more than worth its money. There are so many bloody layers to this game, perhaps not to the insanity of Noita, but as one of the best the Wolf RPG engine has to offer, I heavily recommend giving this game a try, and if you enjoy it, go for the expansion too. All that to say, I fucked my run pretty badly by burning an awakening charge while menuing, and otherwise making some poor choices with my companions as a bard. This game is 100% a knowledge check, as like with the original Rogue, stuff doesn't move or progress unless you do. The stiff-necked harpy +3 unleashes an attack on you. You try to defend as you normally would, but multiple wounds have taken their toll. Your dodges are now slow and sloppy. The enemy attack zooms in on your body and connects, sending you to the ground. You aren't getting up from that one. As your consciousness starts to flee, you look up one last time at the stiff-necked harpy +3, who looks down on you with an intense hunger. Your journey is now at an end. Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain, but 3D. This one I don't think I need to go too in-depth on, since it's pretty damn popular compared to the original. Lots of fellas have played it, plenty more have modded it to their liking too. It's a rather flexible platform for power fantasies, anyhow. But yeah, take all the good stuff I mentioned about Risk of Rain, but increase the execution requirement a fair bit since it is now in 3D. I went with the bandit again for my run here and kicked the bucket because I failed to dodge. Bit too unfortunate really. We got caught in the wrong spot for a moment and boom. Balatro. Poker for points with increasingly absurd scoring systems and requirements. Balatro is math final boss in poker form. It's bloody addictive, and if you haven't already played it, you really shouldn't. You can and will lose hours upon hours to this game. It is, however, 100% a knowledge check. The better you are at poker, the easier the game is. But the more you know how to break the game, the even easier it gets. I did a very standard run without any difficulty modifiers and snapped it clean in two on my run through. More so by doing a sacrificial dagger run while sacrificing face cards to this one joker as well. Regardless, don't play Balatro, it's stupid addictive. New high score thanks to the funny shank. Rabbit and Steel. I am so sorry to MinoDev for such a sad showing on stream. As penance, I will recommend you to the time I interviewed MinoDev, the creator of Rabbit and Steel, alongside Maiden and Spell. I wholeheartedly agree with a lot of their game design logic, and thus heavily respect the fella. That said, Rabbit and Steel is pretty much an MMO raid simulator of a roguelike. You and a couple of mates can go in and play through Mouse Forden alongside many other raid encounters while rolling off for loot and optimizing your rotations and DPS. There's plenty of AoEs to dodge, bloody tethers, and maddening mechanics to handle. The game is about 90% execution and 10% knowledge, I'd say. The execution is so ridiculously important to the point where they were even able to hold a world's first raid race for this game. I am obligated to recommend this game thanks to how much was put behind it. Regardless, my own run on stream was picking a new class, dying to the first real enemy I came into contact with, and one of the single most pathetic runs of the game I've ever had. Yep. Rabbit and Steel, already over. Drop Duchy. This is puzzle Tetris in a rather charming low poly art style. Stack an area with environment tiles and buildings, harvest resources for clearing rows, and eventually you'll need to fight off enemies you've had to place down and plan around. It's all a very novel concept with quite a few variations on play patterns and strategy. Compared to conventional Tetris though, this game is 95% knowledge rather than execution. As tiles stay where they are and all have differing properties, you can't just downstack or T-spin your way to victory. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a new game here. Would recommend if you're getting too old for traditional Tetris. My run failed spectacularly because I forgot to get any real military buildings and Fuss got absolutely destroyed upon reaching the Act 1 boss. The meta progression here does indeed change quite a lot of the game, so one run doesn't really do it much justice. 59 damage flies in our face. We are dead twice over. Enter the Gungeon. Twin-stick dungeon crawling roguelike with a ridiculous amount of charm, and I absolutely suck at it. Gungeon is a bullet hell in more ways than one, and while I'd normally be half decent at those, having 1cc'd a lot of older Touhou games, I cannot wrap my head around the dodge timing in this one. There's a lot of upgrades and secrets, but my knowledge is so bloody scarce with this game that I'm honestly lost half the bloody time. Gungeon is unfortunately one of those games I haven't had much time to place into, so I can't give a proper recommendation. My own run died at the first boss. I was maybe only one dodge away from finishing them off, but ate shit at the last moment. I call this game more execution heavy than knowledge, but perhaps I'm too dumb to realize where things actually are. Rip. Cindereia. This is Hades Lights in a chibi anime style. This run was my very first run, and while it shows some promise, I find it lacks a bit of sauce on first impression. The limited dashes and healing makes it out to be far more deliberate than Hades at least. The striking similarities though are hard to deny. Knowledge would have gone a decent way in getting through here more seamlessly. Instead, we got killed off by the first boss while having barely any HP to make mistakes at all. Given more time with it, I'd reckon I'd come to enjoy the game a bit more, but otherwise it's an alright enough first impression. Had quite a long prologue cutscene, a very fairy tale feeling one anyhow. Perhaps the atmosphere may be enough to tie you over. Nope. It is over. Slay the Spire. Ah yes, the original, and the one I can use googly eyes with. If you want an almost perfected sandbox to play in, play this rather than the sequel. Knowledge can basically be rendered perfect, and clearing the higher ascension levels kinda do mean something. It's not as if the ascension or way there is going to be patched again. And you aren't getting your ass carried there. It's all your own efforts. Nonetheless, one of the single best deck builders on the market. Play this first before the sequel if you want a complete package. And the Googly Eyes mod doesn't crash my game here. My own run died pretty fast because I was fucking around trying to get a P-Strike build up and running. Otherwise, I reckon I probably could have cleared with something proper. Not even the power of Googly Eyes could have saved us. Hades 2. Ah yes, the sequel or alternative timeline of Supergiant's darling Hades. I don't like this as much as the original, despite there being basically double to triple the content. Got a very witchy theming to it, but less of it makes quite as much sense narratively. There's little reason for us to keep fighting certain bosses over and over again. Rather, defeating the final boss also feels like you've gotten cheated out of a win at times. That said, it's still very damn polished and plays quite nicely. This game is a decent balance of knowledge and execution, perhaps leaning more on execution due to the charge-based nature of Omega attacks and casts. They're much like the original in comparison, but Hades 2 has a ridiculous amount to offer regardless. I went with the underworld routes for my run and got as far as the fields before being done in pretty badly, not even making it to Cerberus. Rip.
Return to Shadow now.
Hate this bloody axe. Dead Cells. So, if you've ever watched a fella named Psyche, this game had enough behind it to kickstart a YouTube career. One that would eventually become a gacha one. That said, Dead Cells is nail-bitingly hard and exceedingly painful to play at times. The sheer amount of adrenaline from playing the game is worth it though. You need to be fast, efficient, and perfect to clear the game smoothly, and even then, perfect may not be quite enough once you get to the harder difficulties, that of which continuously unlocks more and more new stuff. I've only cleared far as 2 boss cells, and even then, I'd consider the game at such a ridiculous difficulty that you'd have to be exceedingly dedicated to clear beyond. My own run died in the Castlevania DLC, being victim to the Necromancer boss there. If you think you're tough shit, go play this. It'll humble you rather quickly with its lightning fast execution requirements. Very little in the way of knowledge will save you if you can't react fast enough to teleporting enemies. Well, there goes the Dead Cells run. That actually went longer than I thought it would. Into the Breach. A perfect information puzzle game by the developers of FTL. It's kinda like if Pacific Rim had bugs instead of kaiju. Well, the bugs are still the size of kaiju. Game is pretty fantastic in the way of testing your knowledge and sequencing. It's far from execution heavy, as turns wait for you and can be undone to an extent even. Anyhow, you are saving the world as a bunch of time-traveling mech pilots against the bug threats. Each level is played out on a grid, with a few mechs that have special ways of interacting with enemies and the environments. Rarely is the solution direct damage compared to displacement, and even more clever solutions to even the odds. This game is a rather hard puzzle game, but I would recommend it nonetheless if you want something to challenge spatial awareness and sequencing logic. My own run died rather fast, after I flubbed a train defense mission by having a bug score a double strike on the power grid. 2 places worth of damage. And we lost. FTL. Speaking of FTL's developers, faster than light. Compared to Into the Breach, this one actually has a fair few more execution requirements, needing you to micromanage a Federation ship running from the Rebel fleet. You go from system to system to upgrade your ship for a final showdown with the Rebel flagship. This game is one of the classics that people draw inspiration from for future roguelikes, and it shows. I ran the NG ship with its EMP and drone, expecting a pretty easy run, only to end up headfirst into multiple hostile sectors. NGs aren't built for boarding action against mantises, so we had plenty of hell as our drone and EMP rushed to disable the enemy ship. Not a single EMP, however, charges fast enough to stop teleporters, dooming me to ridiculous amounts of damage, and a ship that fell behind in defenses and capabilities, ultimately ending the run. This game, like Into the Breach, is a heavy knowledge check, but it does have some slight real-time elements to it with pause. Okay, yeah, it's over. Bro. Civilian hub my ass. Loop Hero. Ah yeah, Loop Hero. World is over. Flipped out into oblivion. We're left to reimagine and regenerate what remains by going around in a circle track, fighting in an automated classic Final Fantasy ATB-like style, while resolving loot and building a continuously painful track for our class of choice to tackle. It's a very unique concept, all in all, blending a heck of a lot of different genres together, including deck building, RPG gearing, arguably tower defense as the enemy, and far more. The meta progression in this game is exceedingly important and far more impactful than anything else, making doing just a single run not so rewarding. That said, I would place this game as a 90% knowledge check, since what little influence you can make in real time is only going to make or break a few runs, compared to poor decisions made culminating up until that point. My own run ended because I overestimated my character's ability to take on many foes, and come out on top to farm health from enemies with souls. The rogue unfortunately doesn't quite benefit much from having high HP compared to just avoiding damage altogether, ending my run to a swarm of bats and a dog. Nope. It's over. Hades won. Okay, I used to hate this game because I didn't understand duo boons or how everything should work together. I then had a mate swing by and teach me how to properly play, and bam, almost 5 clears in a row. Anyhow, love this game to death. Has a real sense of momentum as you push forward out of the underworld with Zagreus. There's less stopping to charge attacks like with Hades 2, and instead just constant pushing through. It feels closer to Bastion, I suppose, one of Supergiant's older offerings. Regardless, this game is balanced execution and knowledge. The more you know, the easier it gets, but the harder you crank the heat meter, the more the game expects you to fight back in a more calculated manner. Hades is at its best when you are double dash attacking recklessly through hordes of enemies rather than kiting them around like a madman. That said, my own run made it to the temple, then died off to increasingly stupid trap rooms that I was far from fast enough to react to. Yep, we died of poison. Peak. Not strictly a roguelike, as not every single run is different, but day by day the routes and biomes change, so that was barely enough to make it qualify for this list. It's a pretty fun climbing simulator with plenty of little twists and turns as considerations while making your way to each campsite. This is about a 90% execution check, I reckon. While knowing additional information and secrets will help you along, it's mainly down to how well you judge routes and climbing that will carry you through to the end. The run that I did, we didn't fly so well and fell off a wall in the roots, resulting in some unfortunate mushroom zombification. As a warning, there are spiders in this game, and turning on arachnophobia mode would have helped me out a fair bit if I'd known. It's just the previous times I'd played through, the second biome was tropics instead of roots. I think it's over, Chief. Yeah, I think it's over. Oh, jeez. Yep. Shotgun King. This is chess with a shotgun. Your goal is to take out the other king using your shotgun instead. The enemy board gets an increasing amount of pieces and abilities to halt you on your way to doing so. Otherwise, don't get checkmated and you should be golden. This one is 100% a knowledge check since everything happens turn by turn, giving you close to perfect information like chess would about its board state. It does mean that you can take your time and abuse your existing chess knowledge to trivialize the game. The last time I ever won a chess tourney was by sheer accident in primary school. That was after having fallen into the losers brackets. That said, the teacher running it was quite cruel at the time. Even having beaten the champion in the end, they just told me, "Huh? You were expecting any sort of prize? You already lost to go down to the losers bracket, so you get nothing." That more or less killed any motivation to ever actually learn the game properly. Oh, rip. Blah. Invisible Ink. This is Clay Entertainment's best work. Before the flood of Don't Starve content and other properties, they'd go on to put out Clay were the best in the business for stealth games. Mark of the Ninja is one of the finest stealth games ever made, and Invisible Ink in following up on it is fucking fantastic. You are an ambushed espionage agency known as Invisible that has 72 hours to establish a new base of operations and save your team. Stripped down to the bare minimum resources to operate, you must sneak your way through corporate buildings and facilities to build up your agents and gear, tackle increasingly secure facilities to find a way to stop your agency from going under. As far as roguelike concepts go, a turn-based stealth tactics game wouldn't be on most people's radar. I implore you to try this one out sometime. It is too unique to not at least have a shot at it. That said, it's definitely a knowledge check rather than an execution one. The learning curve may be a bit high if you're unwilling to read. Regardless, my own run wasn't finished on stream in the end, instead failing the mission after, off stream. And that concludes the most recent roguelike roulettes. If you've got some recommendations for the next time I do one of these, by all means fire away in the comments. As a game developer, the more places you can draw inspiration from, the better. So a diverse library of jank like this does help out a good chunk. Thanks for listening into the video. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like below and subscribe to the channel. Though most of it is usually just Limbus and Project Moon related content instead. The lull in new releases does give some room for this kind of stuff though. As for announcements, community Discord is open as always. You can find the link below in the video description. We run a lot of community stuff in there, but most notably my PMTTRPG fixes Urban Nightmare Tabletop. We're about to do a full progression wipe, so newbies are absolutely welcome to join up. Aside from that, here's the Artist Corner once again. If you're an established artist in my Discord server, then in return for sketching one of my OCs, I'll offer you a spot to plug your comms. This time around, we have the same set of mates and a circle that took me up on the offer. First is FSJ. They're tabling at Comifuro this year and have Limbus and GFL merch. I think the drawing minds have killed them at this point, like genuinely. They didn't even do their weekly games night. Next we've got Sleepy once again. They're a Rian-obsessed artist, though I believe they're currently going through art school hell. Stuff looks like it's straight out of a ring school, minus the teacher splattered across the blackboard. You can find their comms here or in the description below. Last is Mobius Overlords. They've been drawing non-stop recently. A lot of Nugget-related stuff. They should really rest their wrists. You can reach out on their socials for comms. Otherwise, if you're a company that wants a sponsored spot in my videos, go contact me by email instead. Just nothing adult or AI related, please. Aside from those fellas, these are my patrons and members, Derp, Artie, Ane, Iwa, Lumi, and Zolk Safira. Thank you as always for continuing to support me and keep the lights on. As for the rest of you, appreciate you tuning in to Second Monitor content. Thanks for your time.